Well, it's another nightmare week in the games industry for video game studios and developers. Let's talk about it for better or worse. Here we have some reporting on IGN. It's on a bunch of websites as well. This one's from Rebecca Valentine. EA cuts around 300 roles, including roughly 100 at Respawn, reportedly cancels Titanfall game. So if you read through this or see any of the other coverage, basically EA is cutting around 300 jobs, mostly from Respawn, or at least 100 of them. There's also some rumors right now that Codemasters and some other games may also have lost their developers due to like Codemasters, like social media doesn't exist anymore. And there has been some announcement of them not continuing to work on the racing games. So the thought is they'll probably be taken into other studios or made into a new studio, kind of EA motive style. So we'll have to wait and see about that. Along with Respawn, that was interesting because there were two like early stage projects that reportedly have been canceled, including a Titanfall game. Now, don't get too excited. It wasn't Titanfall 3 or happy. I don't really know what you would be. It was a extraction shooter. So they were trying to jump on that trend, just like everyone else, probably about 5 years too late. And it seems like they've canceled that. So that's the news. Now, here's kind of what I think about it. So what I always say, this stuff sucks, right? This stuff is awful. It's the worst. It has made me start to wonder, though. I feel like there's been a big focus on layoffs in the game industry, especially at studios, for the last 3 or 4 years, basically post COVID, right? And I think that's partially because, actually, in large part, due to during COVID, studios exploded. New studios were popping up, and shortly before, because interest rates were super low on loans. So it was really cheap to get money to give to people, right? So we had studios expand crazy, especially during COVID because of work from home. It was easy to hire people. We also saw in the years before and in the short time before and during COVID, all these studios popped up. If there was something, there was a list I remember seeing once. It was like 20 or 30 plus studios popped up, and every single description of it was so and so studio making a AAA game led by people from this famous studio and this famous studio. And there were literally dozens of these. And today, there's very few of them still remain. So I think that there's a bit of a correction going on. I also think people forget that in the before times, there were layoffs all the times at studios. Now it tended to be more cyclical. It tended to be more expected. So, a studio would work on a game for a couple of years, and then the game would come out, and then they would lay off like half their staff. It was normally mostly contractors and things like that, but it still was a fairly normal thing. Big differences now is that back then games would take maybe 2 or 3 years to develop, and then they would come out, and then you could jump on another game, right? Now games can take 4, 5, 6 plus years to develop, and the industry has just changed. Another big problem, and this is kind of related but not direct, is that we're seeing so many games be in development for 2, 3, 4 years, especially from those studios who were started up by people back in the 2000-ish era, 2020 era, and they just never release a game, and then they shut down. A really good example was Casey Hudson's studio that he started, and they theoretically worked on a game for 4 or 5 years, and then they shut down, and we've heard nothing about them since. So that was a Humanoid studio. So this obviously sucks, for EA specifically. From what I can tell, it looks like it was mostly Respawn. It looks like Codemasters was probably on the block. As someone who covers BioWare and Mass Effect a lot, I've seen no evidence that BioWare was a hit, even though how could they be? Because there's so few of them left. But that's good if you're, excited about that game and still hoping, like I am, that the next Mass Effect comes out and does well and all that. I will say that BioWare has a job listing, which is their first one in quite a while, and it's still up. So, take that for what it is. And I've seen I follow quite a few BioWare devs and former BioWare devs, and I've not seen any of them say they were laid off. So It doesn't make it better that other people were laid off, but if you're specifically interested in the thing I cover a lot, it looks like they got out unscathed, at least for now. So we'll have to see what goes on with that. Look, at some point, this is normal and it's not okay. I'm not making excuses for it. I'm not saying I approve of it or anything, but it is getting to a point where the reporting on this, at least in my opinion, maybe needs to transition from, oh my God, there were layoffs, how, to, yeah, there were layoffs again. And let's talk about, the situation around it. One of the big things that happened here, and I swear this isn't a defense, I promise, but Andrew Wilson, the CEO of EA, widely hated for good reason. One of the big pushes back in the day behind microtransactions that were really scummy and pay to win, as well as one of the people who came out and said like single player games are dead. And, that's a summary of what he said, not an exact quote, but so justifiably hated, right? But it popped up, after these layoffs and saying, oh, he made $25 million last year. Yeah, he did. And I guarantee if he made a fifth of that, or if, EA made another $1 billion last year, that these people probably still would have been laid off. I get kind of tired of this whole like, oh, look how much money he made. Like, we've seen the clear evidence that if a game sells pretty well, like Marvel Rivals, you'll still see layoffs in the people who made that game. If a game reviews really well, like Dragon Age the Veilguard, you'll still see layoffs around that game. And then not to mention games that don't do well and that don't review well. So I think people need to get out of this notion of, if that CEO just took less money, these people, wouldn't have been fired. They still would have been fired. That 25 million for a company that makes $7+ billion a year, like EA, it's, 25 million isn't making, that's pocket change to them. They're doing these things for other reasons, and they aren't good reasons. They're pure corporate greed, capitalism stuff. But it's not just as simple as, well, if that CEO just took less money, those people would still have jobs. Probably not. They'd probably still be laid off. So I encourage people to look deeper, to find more, impactful articles or articles or reporting that goes deeper into why these things are happening. I don't know. I've seen a ton of good reporting on this. I think Jason Schreier is as close as we get to, more in-depth thoughts on this. That's another industry, the game journalism industry. We're finding out just today, Polygon got bought out by a venture capitalist company and they got a bunch of layoffs. Giant Bomb, their recent purchaser Fandom, is turning them into like a guide website, and a bunch of the people, the personalities there are like leaving and flipping them off, and like that Giant Bomb was kind of doomed years ago, but they gave it a good college try. That's a whole different industry. So the problem is that people are having a hard time understanding the game industry, and the best people to educate us on that, journalists, they're all getting fired. And my hot take is that the games journalism space right now is extremely low quality. It's mostly people doing what I do, repeating other people's reporting, not doing sourcing and things like that. Except I do this for fun and they do it as a job that's supposed to be like impactful in some capacity. So it's all kind of a mess right now. Luckily, there's still a bunch of good games coming out in the midst of this nightmare of an industry and culture. But maybe that's a whole different video to make. I feel bad for all the people who lost their jobs. Once again, I hope they all find new cool opportunities, or maybe get into an industry that respects them. And I hope that this is the last time I have to talk about this, even though I know it won't be. If you want more gaming news and my thoughts about all this stuff, be sure to subscribe. Consider becoming a YouTube member if you want to support everything I do. You can also do that by looking at the links down in the description of the video. That's all I have for this one. So until next time.